I'm Teisha Bader. Thank you for joining me. Well, this has been an extremely difficult time for the state of Israel with the launching of Operation Rising Lion, a preemptive military operation against the existential Iranian nuclear threat, and Israel's residents being under the fire of missile barrages from Iran, forced to seek shelter in safe rooms and bomb shelters for over a week and a half. And of course, on Saturday night, the United States carried out its own airstrikes, hitting critical Iranian nuclear sites, and now an announced ceasefire with hopes that it will hold. Well, as we reported to you, many Jewish organizations shared their support for the U.S. striking Iran's central nuclear facilities, including the Jewish Federations of North America. And we are so honored once again to have President and CEO of the JFNA, Eric Fingerhut, joining us from Washington. Eric, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate being here.
Of course. So obviously this is a very fluid situation. There's a lot happening and changing in it each day and even throughout the day with the situation with Iran. But let's just go back a little bit to Saturday night. The U.S. stepping in and in a very bold and dramatic military operation, striking Iran's main nuclear sites. How did you feel when you saw that come across in the news, and how significant was it that President Trump and the U.S. took this bold action?
I think it was enormously significant. It's historic. We've been talking about the threat of Iran's nuclear weapons program to Israel and to the United States. They call Israel the little Satan and America's the great Satan. They openly say they're going to annihilate Israel, destroy the state, kill the Jews there. They've attacked and killed Jews around the world. They've attacked and killed American soldiers in the Middle East. And so this has been on the world's agenda. And to see the President of the United States and the United States military take such bold and direct action was just incredible. And so enormously grateful for that leadership and that decision. It was the right decision. And honestly, it was a surprise. We didn't all anticipate it, certainly didn't anticipate it happening as quickly as it did Saturday night. The other thing I want to say is that, as an American Jew, I could not be prouder to see this close cooperation and alliance between the great free people of the United States of America and the great people of the state of Israel, the free Jewish sovereign state, and to see the cooperation together, to see the President of the United States in the White House say, "God bless Israel and God bless America," is something I will never, ever forget.
Absolutely. I do want to read the statement that Federations put out because it is impactful, I think. The Jewish Federations of North America applaud the decisive and historic action taken to dismantle Iran's key nuclear facilities, including the critical site at Fordo. We thank President Trump and the brave women and men of the United States Armed Forces for this historic action. We could not be prouder to have the United States join together with the state of Israel in defense of the free world. And I think, and you just touched on it now, having the U.S.
So we feel,
Yeah. Having the U.S. standing shoulder to shoulder with Israel and showing us as American Jews and the people of Israel, we are with you, is so incredibly meaningful.
And I know you've spoken to many people in Israel, but their gratitude to the United States, their thanks, to the president, it's universal. I had one of my friends in Israel called and said, "Stop any American on the street and tell them I said thank you." And I said I will. And it's not only the action Saturday night, but throughout Operation Rising Lion, all the weaponry that Israel's been using, deploying the planes, the interceptors that have stopped ballistic missiles coming in. These are American made, and many of them part of the package of arms that has been approved by Congress and the president for sale to Israel. The military aid that America has given to Israel over the years, and of course since October 7th, all of this was evident. One of my favorite, the president, of course, loves to use social media. to comment that before Saturday night, but during the Operation Rising Lion, one of my favorite comments was he said, America has the most lethal weapons, military weapons in the world, and Israel knows how to use them. And both of those things are true. American weaponry, as was demonstrated again Saturday night with the B-1 bomber and the MOPS, the so-called MOPS, the big bunker busting bombs, are extraordinary. And Israel's know-how and bravery and training and just daring was so evident. And you marry the might of the United States with the daring and the love of country of the state of Israel, and you have what you saw last week, which is an enormously effective combination on behalf of the free world.
And Eric, have you seen, by the same token, have you spoken with people who were upset about the U.S. taking this action, who were perhaps saying, "What does this have to do with us," etc.? And what would you answer them?
Yeah, well, I saw some of those reports. Look, I think there were two groups. One was those who've been critical about the decision-making process. You've heard members of Congress talking about the War Powers Act, and look, I'm a former member of Congress. It's completely appropriate for Congress to have a discussion about war powers and with the president and between the administration. And obviously, I don't agree with them in this case, but this is one of the issues that Congress it's appropriate to deal with. But the claim that this was not in America's interests, that's wholly without merit. Iran has attacked Americans again and again and again. They've threatened America again. They call us the Great Satan. And they would do even more damage to American interests and Americans if they can. And that's why it's been the policy of our country through Democratic and Republican administrations, presidents, not to allow them to obtain a nuclear weapon. President Trump concluded that the negotiations weren't moving, and that therefore this action was necessary. And once again, I think that's just, it's not a new determination that we shouldn't allow America to do that Iran's nuclear program is a threat to America. It was simply a determination that this was the way to deal with it.
And I think also people don't realize that this didn't just start 12 days ago or what have you with Iran. Iran, as you said, has been threatening Israel and the U.S. for that matter for decades. And October the 7th was carried out by proxies of Iran, terror group Hamas, Hezbollah. We know all these terror proxies in the world. Iran is at the center. Iran is giving them support and backing. So this is all part of the same story.
100%. And look, this, once again, the collaboration, the partnership between the United States and Israel since October 7th is extraordinary. It is the Israeli Defense Forces that have led the fight against the proxies, against Hamas, of course, and against Hezbollah, that remarkable military operation that dismantled Hezbollah, and to some extent also against the Houthis. But once again, it was done with American support, American military capabilities, and financial support, and simply could not have done it. Without it. Now, it doesn't mean there weren't disagreements between October 7th and today. Obviously that's a long period of time and many things happen. But overall, American support from President Biden going there in the first week of the war, to President Trump's continued support. This has been an essential part. So we've been working together against the proxies, but it was Israel on the point of the spear that took out the proxies. That then made it possible to go to Iran, and of course, Israel taking out the air defenses also, made this possible. But ultimately, again, to show that it wasn't just that it took American might, these particular bombs to do it, but that America saw it in its interest to be not just an ally behind the scenes, but an ally in front as well. Sends a message that what an important issue this was for the world and what an important moment it was.
Yeah, and I do want to make a note that we're taping this on Tuesday, June the 24th, and the U.S., the president announced that there would be a ceasefire last night that was coming into effect this morning. Unfortunately, tragically, Iran fired some additional missiles at Israel, and we lost four Israelis, tragically, again, before the ceasefire began at 7 o'clock this morning, Israel time. And, we hoping, like I mentioned earlier, that the ceasefire holds. How are you feeling about that today?
Well, we're hopeful as well, of course. Look, it's a very there's so much still to be known about what the full extent of the success of the mission was on Saturday night, as well as what Iran's remaining military capabilities are. But I think, at this point, we are, I'm not in government, and we're talking about two leaders who've been working together, Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Trump, to get us to this point. And so I think we have to trust their judgment on this today. And of course, the fact that it allows Israeli society to go back to normal, the fact that we can at least hope and pray that there won't be another night like last night with the losses. I don't know what the exact total is, but I think this brings us to over 30 deaths as a result of the civilian deaths as a result of the Iran ballistic missiles. And there's been so much loss in Israel since October 7th. Not only those who were killed that day, but also, of course, the brave soldiers who've been lost in the fighting since. That any end to the possibility of further loss has to be celebrated. We also hope that that this can also perhaps bring a quicker resolution to the question of our hostages in Gaza, because it's hard to imagine that the U.S. and Israel, having worked so closely together to confront Iran, can't also effectively address the Hamas issue and the hostages.
Absolutely. And it's so important to keep that on the forefront with everything else going on, not to forget about the 50 hostages who are still being held in Gaza. So, Eric, we talked to mention October the 7th, of course, and as we know here in the United States, as the Jewish community, we have seen a very large spike in anti-Semitism since then. And of course, some recent deadly attacks, tragic one in our nation's capital, and of course, also in Boulder, the attack there. And I know that you are flying in leaders from the Jewish community across the United States to gather in Washington tomorrow, Wednesday, the 25th of June. Tell us what the agenda is, what you'll be doing.
Yeah, well, look, the need for the Jewish community to increase its security, and for the government at all levels to increase its commitment to the security of all Americans, but certainly to Jewish Americans who are targeted, has been evident for some time since the Tree of Life shootings in Pittsburgh, which was in October of 2018. We've been building community security, professionally run community security initiatives in every Jewish community, connecting every Jewish institution, and also our local law enforcement. We've successfully advocated for increase in federal support for something called the Nonprofit Security Grant. So all of that was underway since October 7th. As your listeners surely know, your viewers know, the incitement to violence wasn't just on college campuses. It's been in city councils. It's been on streets and the public square. It's been on the internet for sure. And that means that people will take them up on it. And we've had incident after incident where our security measures have been successful and our law enforcement has been successful in stopping. And then tragically, we had two terrible incidents, one in Washington, as you said, where we saw the murder of the beautiful, beautiful souls of Sarah Milgram and Yaron Lashinsky, and then the firebombing of those in Boulder, Colorado, who were literally in the public square remembering the hostages. That's what they were doing when they were attacked. And a dozen or more there were injured, including a Holocaust survivor. I mean, it's just incomprehensible. Those incidents, which occurred before the war with Iran began, prompted us to say, we have to come to Washington as leaders of each of our communities. We have to help make sure that Congress understands and the president and his administration understand the extent to which not only this is costing our community more money for security, but it's actually affecting the way we live. People are scared to participate in Jewish life, and we reassure them with our security measures, but it has to be enhanced, and not a single event can go forward that isn't properly secure. And we have to have more patrols from the local police, and the FBI needs more support to find these characters, because ultimately every one of them has a footprint somewhere, that we find after the fact. And we have to address hate crimes incitement on the social media and enforce hate crimes. So we decide to convene here, and tomorrow there will be representatives of over 100 community through their federations, and then in partnership with the Conference of Presidents, another 50 national organizations represented, and we will go together and say, look, we're doing our share, but ultimately it's the government that is responsible for the safety and security of its citizens in their places of worship and in their places of communal gathering. And we are at a time of rising domestic terror aimed at the Jewish community, but certainly is going to spill over to other communities as well. And we need additional help and support. We're here to work with them. This isn't a protest or this is let's roll up our sleeves and work together and develop the solutions. We saw with President Trump's action Saturday night what bold action can do with the security of the Jewish people in Israel. And we need similar bold action for the security of Jewish Americans at home. I want to just say one other thing, if I can, which is that Please. There is a direct link between the Iran war, which began after we called for this fly-in and ended the day before. Incredibly, an entire war happened from when we decided to come to Washington and we came to Washington. But the link is, of course, that Iran is the largest sponsor of global terror. We remember that they bombed the Jewish community centers in Buenos Aires, that they've killed Jews, instigated terrorist attacks around the world. They do clearly have the ability to reach terror, to bring terror to our streets, and they're being instigated, unfortunately, by domestic partners. When people chant "globalize the Intifada," what they're saying is bring the terror that has been visited on Jewish people around the world to America. And even if the attackers, say in Washington, D.C. or Boulder, weren't officially part of their network, they are inspired by it, and they are motivated by it, and they are responding to it. So now the threat level is even higher. Everyone recognizes it. And just as we've taken, as I said, bold action against Iran, we have to take bold action domestically to protect the Jewish community and all the citizens of America.
Well, Eric, thank you for what you do every day at Federations, and thank you for the gathering that you will be a part of and leading in Washington tomorrow. We wish you the best of luck and appreciate all your efforts. And I hope the next time that we speak, we will be able to say that all the hostages are home. In the meantime, we will say Am Yisrael Chai, as we do every day. And thank you so much for joining us here on JBS.
Thank you for having me. Am Yisrael Chai.
CEO and President of the Jewish Federations of North America, Eric Fingerhut from Washington. Thank you for watching.